And if you're hoping that we're going to do 4 hours on the cryptic tweet by A.J. Brown, I hate to break it to you, we're not. Now, we will address it because the way I look at A.J. Brown's tweet is the way I would look at it if I had a fever, a cough, and a runny nose. I'm not going to just cut off my nose. What I'm going to try to do is find the source of the infection. If the smoke alarms are going off, I'm not going to rip the smoke alarm off the ceiling. I'm going to look for the fire. And clearly, A.J. Brown's tweet is a symptom of an issue with that offense. Now, the team is 4-0. We feel great that the team is 4-0. We talked about this at length yesterday. But there clearly is something going on with that offense, and that is what we want to dive into today. Not the drama of who he was talking about and what did he mean and how bad was Sirianni at his press conference. None of that crap. I want to get into what is going on with the offense and what is the issue. I got my man Ricky Bowe with us today. We got our man Andrew DeCecco, the Birds Insider, brought to you by Barlow Buick GMC. Barlow Buick and GMC on Route 45 in Woodbury, barlowautogroup.com. So let's dive deep into this offense because even though the team is 4-0, I think any person out there, even the most casual fan, would tell you something's off. 30th in the NFL in yards per game. 31st in the NFL in passing yards per game. And maybe just as surprising, 16th in the NFL in terms of rushing yards, and you haven't been able to get Saquon Barkley going. So, Ricky, Andrew, the floor is yours.
All right.
What the hell's going on?
Well, let's start with this. In my opinion, last year, the one thing that was thrown out there was a lot of credit given to Saquon Barkley for going over the 2,000-yard mark, and his rushing was pretty fantastic. You can go as far as you want in that type of situation, but where does it all start, guys? All starts up front. And in my opinion, you look at it right now, you've had issues at the right guard. The right tackle has been injured now in 2 separate games. Mailata, I don't have a problem with. I've said this yesterday. But the rest of the offensive line has got to stand back up to where they were in years past. Last year, we gave them all the credit in the world. All the credit in the world went to these guys up front. The trenches did everything. The trenches did this. The trenches. I don't see that happening right now. And maybe it's because of injuries. We know Landon Dickerson is still trying to get over that leg or the knee, right?
It was the knee, and then he had the back.
And then the back, and now you have Lane Johnson's been injured. This is a little bit of an issue. You've had in and out at the right guard position. I think there's issues right now a little bit on the front lines. And that, to me, is where everything starts. Okay, once they get going, I think everything else falls into play. I don't know how you guys feel.
Well, you hit on a lot of points here. And as I've always said, and I maintain this, it's not just one person, one facet that's sort of holding the offense back, right? That's never the case. It's always a combination of things. You talk about the running game. Saquon Barkley is averaging 59.3 yards per game, 3.1 yards per carry. That's unfathomable, especially for someone of his caliber. Now, there's reasons for that. There's formational areas that they could look to improve. There's the interior of the offensive line, which has not played to their standard. I'm sure they'll be the first to tell you that. Then you have the receiving game. A.J. Brown has had 2 games where he's had less than 10 yards. Devontae Smith had 29 yards receiving on Sunday.
And one of them was a 20-yard catch.
They're getting it done, but I don't know how sustainable that's going to be. Now, what is their identity? If you guys remember, I went back to saying when the schedule was released, Week 5 was my barometer. That's where you're going to get a better idea of who this team is and what direction they're headed on that side of the ball. And this is a big opportunity against this Denver Broncos team to learn. And that's what Kevin Petullo talked about. It's a learning process, and now you're able to better gauge where they are.
Naked eye, there's one thing I see, is that the offense seems to be all about Jalen Hurts scrambling right now. I think a lot of the offense has come from that.
A lot of that is by necessity, not necessarily by plan.
Right, yeah. Which stems to where? The offensive line.
Yeah, and Andrew and you both are right that this team has yet to find their identity yet. And it's not much different than what we saw last year. Through the first 4 weeks of the season, the team was still trying to find their identity. If you go back and you look at the way those first 4 games went last year, the team was 2-2, but they weren't necessarily leaning on the rushing attack as much as they started to do after the bye week. And what that resulted in were a lot of turnovers early last year. They had 8 turnovers through the first 4 games last season. You look at this year's team now, they only have 1 turnover, which has been good, but we've also talked about that. Are they too risk-averse? But when you mention identity, it was something that Kevin Pizzullo, the offensive coordinator, was asked earlier today. Like, what is the identity of this football team? And I think he gave a pretty truthful answer. They're still trying to figure it out. Listen to the OC.
We're starting to feel some things that we have kind of going that's kind of flowed throughout a few games now. And so I think it's just building on that because each defense in each week presents something totally new. And this week we're playing another really good defense, top tier, really good front rushers. The secondary is good. So I think there's some things we've learned that, like, okay, this is a little different than last year, or, you know, we're kind of continuing on this path, so let's push this a little bit. But I think you just got to look at each game independently, and then you start to see patterns as you start to build throughout the season. And it's great that it's happening now, you know, and not later. And we're playing these tough defenses now to kind of figure this out as we go.
You see, I think he's right. You are going to figure this out as you go. Now, it's a great problem that they're 4-0. Like, you're 4-0. You should be happy as fans. We talked about this yesterday. But, yes, they are still trying to find themselves. They are still trying to figure out what this offense should look like. And the reason I get frustrated by this A.J. Brown conversation is because I do think it distracts from what the bigger issue is, which is this offensive line hasn't been good enough. This rushing attack hasn't been good enough. As much as I like Jalen Hurts, I don't think he has been good enough if your goal is to win another Super Bowl. The goal is not to start the season 4-0. The goal is to win a Super Bowl, and I think this team does need to improve offensively for that to happen. And quite frankly, I think that they will. They're too talented not to. But like you've been saying all offseason, AD, now's the time to start. Week 5 is when you should really start to identify what this offense is going forward.
Yeah, a quarter of the season's over, Bill. So now, as the calendar turns to October, this is where you really need to find your stride as an offense. And I look at the Chiefs from last year that were, what were they, 14-2 or 15-2? I think that might be a pretty apt comparison when you look at this offense versus the team that the Kansas City Chiefs had last season, where they were winning, but, you know, they were kind of hanging on by a thread each and every week. Now, I think the Eagles are infinitely better, but you have to get things corrected. And just look at last September when they were 2-2, and a lot of folks thought that the sky was falling, and then they figured it out. It's not about who you are or what you are in September. It's about what you are or what you're able to evolve into in November, December, and January.
And what kind of team is this going to be, I think, is the question. Is it going to be a defensive team? Is it going to be an offensive team? Or is it just going to be a nice little mix of both? I think last year what you ended up with is a nice little mix of both. But that didn't happen till week 6, 7 almost.
Yeah, it takes time to get revved up. And I know that's not the answer that everybody wants to hear, but you can't. It's not a instantaneous gratification. Things take a little bit of time to play out.
Yeah, the crazy thing is I was looking at the first 4 games of the year last year because, like Ricky just pointed out, they really didn't start to find the rhythm until after the bye, and it wasn't even right away. That Cleveland Browns game, there were people still calling for Sirianni's job.
But the offense was not this bad.
The offense was not this bad. However, looking through the first 4 games of the year, they were averaging a little over 21 points a game. This team right now is averaging 27, which maybe is a bit of a surprise. But where the differences definitely lie, 212 yards a game through the first 4 last year through the air, 154 yards a game on the ground through the first 4. Mm-hmm. This year, those numbers have dropped from 212 to 138 and from 154 down to 114. So, yes, things need to get better. And like Andrew pointed out, 3.1 yards a carry for Saquon.
Yeah, that's unheard of. Now, compare that to what J.K. Dobbins and the 2 running backs for the Broncos. I think J.K. Dobbins is over 5 yards a carry. I was talking to Merrill Reese about that this morning. And so I do believe that they're talented enough to figure it out, and they're committed enough. Jordan Mailata, after the game Sunday, mentioned that they're close. They're a block away from springing things. And I go back to a couple of I guess you look at the Kansas City Chiefs game. There are 2 plays in that game that are further evidence of that. The first play of that game that was sort of squandered by Grant Calcaterra not being able to hold off Jalen Watson, who was blitzing off the edge. They had A.J. Brown, who would have streaked wide down the field for a big play touchdown of about 60 yards. And then you look at that 13-yard touchdown that Saquon Barkley had against the Chiefs If that were further away, that would have been, there was nothing but green grass in front of him. That would have been what they call an explosive run.
All right, so here's what I want to do coming up. And this is the question that I want to throw out to all of our listeners and viewers today. The passing game is getting all of the publicity, and a lot of it is because of the A.J. Brown tweet after the game and what's going on. But I want to throw the question out to all of you that what do you think is the bigger problem, though, offensively? Is it, in fact, that passing attack, or is it the running game?
What's up, everybody? It's Bill Colarulo from Unfiltered with Ricky Bo and Bill Colarulo. Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel because we post a ton of content. It's not just what you hear on air. We're posting content all day long. We do some things before the show, after the show, even stuff during the show. So subscribe, like, do whatever you got to do. We got all this content coming to you every single day.